There's a roll. It's a lot easier at 3Gs. Welcome to space, everyone.
Yeah.
Good to be back. I don't remember liftoff being quite that violent. I do.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
All right, good afternoon. As you all saw, the team has just wrapped up the final suited integrated ascent simulation. Joining me to my left is Richard Jones, who is the ascent flight director for this STS-135 mission. We'll turn it over to him to make some remarks, then turn it over to Commander Chris Ferguson, and then we'll take questions. Richard?
Okay, thanks. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming out. You're standing in this wonderful room, the Mission Control Center, in the white flight control room, or the white FICR as we know it. You got to observe the teamwork, the absolute cohesiveness that what it takes to get something like this done. And what we're doing is we're building teamwork with not only our our team members within this room, but we're building that cohesiveness with the crew as well. Today was very typical of an ascent simulation. A lot of failures, but at the same time, we're exercising everything that we need to do to get ready for a flight. I was very happy with the actual simulation, and I'm just glad to be a part of this team. So I'm going to hand this over to Chris Ferguson, or Fergie, and let him introduce his crew. Thanks.
Thanks, Richard, and thank you everybody for coming out today. Hopefully you got a small snapshot of what a crew goes through and what the mission control team goes through as we approach launch. You know, Richard's being a little bit humble. These folks in this room are the best of the best. There is no one else in the world who can do the job that they do just the way they do, and I think you had a little taste today for just how much they help the crew get through a lot of the things that the crew simply could not get through on their own. Each one of these subject matter experts are experts in their field. They know all the answers, and I'll tell you what, when they're helping us and they're on their game, we really, our lives are literally in their hands. You know, we can handle a failure or two, perhaps a layer or two deep, but once it gets a little more complicated than that, we count on these guys to get us through. And I think today, with some of the complex scenarios that you've seen, it bore that out to be absolutely true. We really need their help, and they have just done a fantastic job. This whole evolution was designed to really showcase the Mission Control Center, so I want to keep this real short. Just very quickly, to my left is the pilot, Doug Hurley. Doug Hurley is a colonel in the Marine Corps. He's a veteran of a single space flight, STS-129, and to Doug's left is Sandy Magnus. Sandy Magnus, veteran of several space flights, depending on how you count them, but she flew a shuttle flight, STS-112, and then did a 4.5-month station increment. She went up with me on STS-126 and came back, I believe, on STS-119. don't try to figure the numbers out. They don't make sense. And to her left is Rex Walheim. Rex, this will be Rex's third space flight. He's a retired Air Force colonel. He flew on STS 110, 122, and this will be his third flight. So again, this whole evolution is more about the Mission Control Center, so I'll go ahead and knock it off there. I think we're going to open it up for questions, correct? All right.
All right, so we can start on this side. Can you just indicate if you have a question? And state your name, please, and who your question is directed to.
My name's Kevin Fong. I'm with the BBC. I guess this is for everyone, but we're 22 odd days before launch now. At what point do you really believe this is it and you're definitely going to go?
You get the first one.
Chris was nice. Fergie was nice enough to make me answer this one. I fully turn my attention to it's time to go. Once we're inside of T-9, and as on 133, sometimes it's not almost there as well. But yeah, inside of T-9 minutes, and everyone is saying go for launch. It's kind of when I turn my attention to, okay, here we go. But really, it's that mission doesn't start till those SRBs light. So you never know what'll happen in between go for launch and SRBs light. So we're ready to handle it.
Ryan Korsgaard from KPRC TV here in Houston. What are your reflections as we end, and we visited about this a moment ago, as we end the shuttle program, as we tick down these final days, you prepare for this last launch, each of you?
Well, you know, the task at hand right now is to make sure that we're clicking along as a team and doing all the right things at the right time without stepping on each other. And so those are all of my thoughts. Some of my thoughts are turned to the vehicle itself. We just went through a tanking test over at Kennedy Space Center, so our Kennedy Space Center counterparts are working to make sure that the vehicle is ready to go. And so we're paying attention to all of that, getting ready for launch. So we're worrying about every single aspect of the mission, making sure that we're prepared to handle not only the nominal, but the contingencies as well.
Commander Ferguson, Pat Patton, Getting News Service. And I wanted to ask you how you feel about being the commander for NASA's last space mission.
Well, I feel extremely fortunate. I think probably the word, however, is more lucky. Any one of a number of people in our office could have taken this position. And, you know, being the commander it's interesting in title, but, you know, we have a fantastic crew, not only on board, but we have an outstanding team who support us on the ground and make this all happen. So, like I said, commander's a title, but we're literally standing on the shoulders of some incredible people who make this entire program happy. You know, and we've had several last missions. We really have. At one time or another, I think 3 different flights for the last mission. And this is just the way this whole thing has worked out. I guess, you know, when the dice all fell and numbers came up, you know, we ended up actually going last. But, you know, we're approaching this mission with the tenacity of all the missions that preceded it. We have a very busy job to do. And I think only after the final wheel stop call will we really, you know, the finality of you know, the historic events that have gone by will begin to hit us. So, but until then, we're nose to the grindstone. We're very busy.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Hi, Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com with a question for each of the crew. You know, Commander Ferguson, you just talked about the many different finals that there are, but this was your last suited run, and there have been a lot of lasts. In fact, just about everything you're doing is a last. Have there been more poignant lasts among what you've accomplished so far, and what has meant the most to you?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like almost every day now that's what we're seeing. We just did the last, probably the last STA out at El Paso, and to just see the folks that we used to see almost every couple weeks, you know, just, you know, and the way they maintain the runways out there, and just all the great memories we've had. You know, we've been flying out to El Paso since, you know, right when you start, and then, you know, as we see people leaving to go do other things, it's been tough, you know, but you know, we're going to do the best we can to honor them and have a great mission, and we look forward to seeing them when we get back. Anybody else want to?
Thanks, Mark Carreau for Aviation Week. After you get on orbit, what's the pace of your activities going to be like? You've got 12 days going into this for the whole mission duration. Can you extend anything on orbit? Is it going to be pretty frantic? What are you guys going in trying to do to make sure you have enough time to get everything done?
Yeah, Mark, I'd have to say with a crew of 4, that is, probably the one thing that concerns me the most. But I think the person who is most highly qualified to answer that is going to be Sandy, because she is going to be the frantic one on the middeck. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Yeah, basically I am the mid-deck. We normally have 2 or 3 people down there, and Doug and Rex come down and help me occasionally. But, usually with any mission, the tone of the mission starts with post-insertion and how well you can get yourself organized once you get to orbit and start in that groove. And I think, we are a little bit of a disadvantage because we're a 4-person crew, but that also means we have less stuff to deal with. We have, 3 less suits, 3 less seats, and things like that. So I think we'll be okay. It's going to be very busy. We have practiced that day very often, so we have a good plan for it, and I think we'll be able to hit the ground running and settle into our groove really early.
Bonjour, Flavie Flamand pour la télévision française, l'œil de Jimmy. J'aimerais savoir si vous êtes fier et si vous vous considérez chanceux d'effectuer le dernier vol à bord d'une navette spatiale américaine. Et comme je suis une femme et une mère de famille, j'aimerais savoir ce que vous direz à vos enfants la veille de votre départ, si vous en avez. Et comme je suis une Française romantique, j'aimerais savoir si c'est agréable de faire l'amour dans l'espace.
Okay. Okay, I translate a little bit. So she wants to know, how do you feel to be the last crew going in space in a shuttle American program? Proud, lucky, how do you really feel? And she's a woman, so what are you going to, it's a question of a woman, what are you going to say to your children, if you have, and to your husband, if you have, to them before flying? And as we are known in France as French lovers, she wants to know, what about the love thing in space?
Well, we certainly don't have time for anything like that, nor the inclination. But let me let Rex address the rest of the question as far as the last flight.
Well, it is, as our commander said, it's a great honor to be on this last flight. It's one of those things where we kind of knew we were getting close to being assigned, but we didn't know whether we would get there before the line closed down, and so we were really excited when it so happened that we got to fly on this flight. My kids have been involved. We kind of have a tradition in my family. We go over to Space Center Houston and watch the briefing, the pre-flight briefing of the next mission when it's my mission. And so we kind of sit in the audience and watch as they explain about the mission and stuff. That's kind of fun. And then once during the training flight, they come over to the neutral buoyancy lab and watch us in the pool. And so they've been following along. My boys are 13 and 14, and this flow they'll really enjoy it a lot more than the others. But it is harder on the families. It's one thing for us to have a little bit of sense of control when we're out in a vehicle and getting ready to fly, and they just have to watch. And even when we're out there watching our friends on missions that we're not assigned to, it's tough to sit there and not be able to do anything and watch people fly. So the families really have the harder job.
Jackie Goddard for the Sunday Telegraph newspaper of London. Thank you for having us along today. I wanted to ask any or all of you, how do you balance that sense of making this a celebration of 30 years of the Space Shuttle against also that sense that some people have expressed, some good long in the tooth NASA veterans, that this feels more like a funeral because it's the last one? How do you get that balance, and how will you be feeling?
That's a great question, and I'm going to turn to Richard in just a second, but because I think it's largely his group of folks who are going to be the most affected, at least in the near term when the mission's over. This whole drawdown of NASA's contractor workforce it's been a force to be reckoned with throughout the training flow. We have made ample trips to the Kennedy Space Center to make sure that we get as much one-on-one contact with the individuals who are touching the vehicle, who work on the space hardware, because it's a pivotal time for them in their lives. They want to see the shuttle program through as safely and as successfully as the missions that preceded it, but at the same time they have other factors on their mind as well, like what are they going to do when this is all over. So we have made many trips back and forth, and I'll tell you, I think I speak for everybody when I say that this workforce has been extraordinarily professional up until the very, very end, and I am enormously proud of every single one of the folks who touched the vehicle out there at the Kennedy Space Center. I don't know if you paid attention a little bit. We had a kind of a major milestone yesterday. We filled the external tank with hydrogen and oxygen, and and we just waited to see what happened. And you know, we found a little bit of a leak in one area, and we're going to go back and fix that in the course of the normal flow. Hopefully, it'll preserve our current launch date. So, living proof that we have the same number of you know, the same capabilities we've always had. I'm going to turn it over to Richard because he's going to lose a few folks here too.
I'll just amplify what Fergie just said right now, just a little bit. The professionalism that I have observed in all of the folks that are here in this room, outside of this room, at all of the different centers that are involved in this program, it's almost unbelievable. And you know, with so much weighing on these folks' minds with respect to this transition, what is next for them, this undertaking and this mission and their job is the most important thing to them at this moment. And to have that actually be the case, it's just part of, it's what makes this program special, because the people that are working these jobs want that to be the first thing that they're thinking about, want it to be the first thing that they're accomplishing that day, want it to be the most special thing that they can be, and make it the most safest, most successful mission that they can be. And I'm amazed when I see that, but at the same time, it doesn't surprise me, because when in this community, we're all family, and we're all going through the same thing. And again, it's just neat to see.
Philip Sloss with NASASpaceflight.com. For the commander, on that last run with the systems AOA, it sounded like, just listening to the flight control team here, that they were really busy, and it sounded like the four of you were really busy. And I know in the past you've sat in the Capcom seat in this room. Who would you say has the harder job in that situation, the folks in this room or the folks on the flight deck?
I have an opinion on that. I'll tell you, and I'll talk about the systems AOA that we did this morning in just a second, but after working, we have a big simulation coming up actually Monday, a FIDO booster, which is it's rather intense. It involves a lot of very unique launch abort scenarios, and I had been through it a couple times over in the box, and then when I started working as a Capcom, I had been over working through it here. And I remember my exact feelings that when I finished that first one as a Capcom, I said that was 10 times harder than being over in the box and simply following the very explicit direction of of the Capcom. So coordinating it all, and this is where we really hats off to the flight control team and what they do over here. Yeah, when we get over there in some of those sims, it's a lot easier. Compliments of them. With regard to today's scenario, that was a little different. I wasn't expecting that, but it was extraordinarily well scripted. We had folks standing. We had to bring the motion down in the simulator so we could get people out of their seats so they could start throwing all the switches that they needed to throw to do everything. That was very unusual to run through a scenario like that. But it's very important. We practice on that. We have a very small crew this time. We don't have anyone on the mid deck, so I think it was a great script and gave us an opportunity, and the mission control team an opportunity to see just what our capabilities are with regard to getting people out of their seats shortly after the main engine's cut off and go through the multitude of switches that we had to throw today. I think we left no switch unturned today.
Mark Kramer from CBS News. For Chris or Doug, you've had a somewhat foreshortened preparation period for this mission compared to what you'd normally have. How have the number of simulations for this compared with what you'd usually expect? And how'd you jam all the preparation into that shorter period of time? And a follow-up on that, is every failure that you see in a simulation unique? Do you have a favorite? Are some repeated because they're more likely?
Yeah, let me see if I can remember all that. Our training flow has been compressed. They kind of waited to the last possible moment to assign us, just because we weren't sure whether the mission was going to fly. So it's been very compressed. We're surely not going to get the maximum number of sims. I know Fergie was on his first flight assigned for four years, so he probably saw a lot more sims than we're going to see. But we're definitely getting a good amount, and frankly, we're just probably like these guys in Mission Control, we're just working longer days to make sure we get every base covered, and I think they're doing a great job. I mean, that sim today was just crazy at times, but it was you know, they just fed us the information we needed it, and at the time we needed it, and then we just, you know, the old alligator closest to the boat, that's what we were doing. And as far as my favorite malfunction, I don't know, like today's was great, and it was a freebie. We had a helium leak on an engine, and my mic was stuck. So as we're trying to sort that, and what happens is now we're on, anybody talking in the cockpit, the ground hears as they're trying to get us information. And luckily, you know, we worked through it, but it was just, it was interesting because it was an actual hardware failure, and it's not uncommon to have that unit, that interface unit that we had that we used to talk to the ground, sometimes it breaks. But that was a good one today, and it was, like I said, it wasn't really completely scripted that way.
Yeah, Greg Milam, Sky News. It's clear from what you said that the team is very important in putting all of this together. Have you allowed yourself, this is to the crew, have you allowed yourself to think about the emotions you'll feel when this mission is over? Can you give yourself a chance to think about those things?
Yeah. Actually, we haven't, I think it hasn't hit us completely yet. It's hit us in bits and pieces gradually as we've gotten closer. For example, we had a crew equipment interface test back in April in Florida. And we were down there. This is typically a test we do in the orbiter while it's still in the processing facility. And we go into the orbiter and we look at the orbiter, make sure everything's the way we'd like it to be. And the ground team there shows us the different pieces of hardware we're going to interface with. And the day after we had this test, about half the team we were working with was going to be let go. That was their last day. And that's really, for me, the first time it became, I guess I became emotional about it, because it was just so, it was very sad, but it was also very inspiring, because you see these people who are so dedicated and so passionate about what they do that even though they were leaving a job that they had for decades, they were still very excited about being a part of the space program, and they were very determined that they were going to give us Atlantis in the best shape that it could be in. And it hits home again. It's like, what a spectacular workforce we have. And it's just unfortunate that our transition is taking place in such a way that we're going to lose such good people. And that will really hit home even more after we land and we really start saying goodbye to the rest of the population.
Hey, Ted Oberg from Channel 13 here in town. I think the question was asked earlier about, is this a celebration or a funeral? I wonder if you guys could help us in Houston. Do we end this program heads held high with 30 years of accomplishments behind us? Or should we sort of slump and say, hey, look, we're ending too soon? I'm just curious from your point of view how we should all see this.
Well, in an ideal world, if there was enough funds to continue to operate this program at the same time as you develop a new program, then yes, we could potentially go on. But being realistic about the money situation in the country, it's hard to do both. So then we say, okay, what is our goal? Our goal is to go beyond low Earth orbit. We need to get beyond the 200 miles up to the space stations. We need to get back to exploring places where we've very rarely or never been. And to do that, we need a new vehicle. So I think we do need to make that transition. Now, part of that hard transition is retiring the Space Shuttle, and that is no question going to be very, very difficult. But as far as I look at it, you look at it almost like you would a person. When a person retires after 30 years of a magnificent career, you have a big celebration. You talk about what they did. In the case of the Space Shuttle, it launched probes to the sun, to the planets. It launched the Hubble Space Telescope, and it fixed the Hubble Space Telescope, and then the crown jewel, it built the entire the U.S. segment of the International Space Station. So you take a look at all those, and you see those legacies live on. You know, the Hubble will still be out there taking pictures and answering questions about the origins of the universe. The International Space Station will be there as the premier space research facility. And so you celebrate those, and you let the Space Shuttle take its rest. Now, the Space Shuttle also won't stop inspiring people. They're going to park Atlantis down at the Kennedy Space Center, and little kids are going to go up real close for the first time to get to see the Atlantis and say, wow, that's amazing. We could launch those things into space, and hopefully they get the same kid reaction. You get, well, do it again, do it again. And so I'm hoping that it inspires people when they go up and see it close that, hey, we do need to keep doing this, and we need to go farther than we have before.
Hi, Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com again. For Richard and Chris, you had a couple of runs today that I believe were transatlantic aborts, and assuming Atlantis gets to orbit fine, knock on wood, that will be an activity that has never been performed through the shuttle program. Can you weigh the time that was spent training for that activity versus what might have been given other priorities versus given that in hindsight we never had to do that type of activity?
Yeah, and let me quote John Young. Of course, John Young is a legacy in our office, and when I first got here in 1998, when we talked about these kind of aborts, and he talked openly, of course, he was the first one that flew the shuttle. Even at that time, around the vicinity of STS 98, 99, 100, he said that he found it absolutely incredible that we hadn't executed some type of abort up to this point in the program. So I think, just to answer your question, me personally, was it perhaps time wasted doing all that? Well, absolutely not, because I think we've had one very late SSME failure very early on in the program, but the SSME is an amazing thing, but it's a 7,000-pound Swiss watch, and one small thing can lead to an abort, and we always need to be prepared for something like that. So, knock on wood, we're going to get through this program without executing, our intact aborts, a TAL or perhaps an RTLS or an AOA. But no, I think we need to do this. Plus, it helps everybody understand the system a lot better. I've talked a little bit longer. Let me hand it over to Richard.
Gosh, Fergie said what I was about to say there at the end. It teaches us about the orbiter. Every one of these simulations that we do, whether it's an ascent, an orbit, or an entry simulation, we learn things about the vehicle, we learn things about ourselves, we learn things about our procedures, and we learn about deficiencies that have to be filled, or we learn about things that just need a little bit more attention. And so no matter what you're doing, even though we've spent all this time practicing all of these ascent or entry, ascent-related aborts, that's what makes us stronger, it makes us what we are. And I think in a way, it makes this look routine. That's what it does. And so all of the work that we're putting in down here translates to, gosh, everything's looking pretty normal up top.
Right, up here on the front, Mark.
Mark Carroll for Aviation Week, and this may be for Rich or Chris, I'm not sure what. But I'm following up on an earlier question about extension potential for the mission. Is it possible at all? Does it depend on how much power you conserve? What are you looking at in the back pocket if you...
Well, my understanding right now, the limiting criteria is iCryo, our cryogenic capability, the consumables that we're loading on the orbiter. Even if we lift off on time, we're not going to have enough cryo to make an extra day that we could add to the mission. So right now, my understanding is we have a 12-day mission, and a nominal 12-day mission is all that we're going to get. It's unless we do something very heroic in terms of a power down, we're not going to get that extra day.
Philip Sloss with NASASpaceflight.com. I guess this may be for Sandy. Where does it stand in terms of the transfers? I guess I've seen some information that says you're going to try and get the MPLM about 70% full coming down. If you do get ahead, will you try and pack it even more full than that, or is that about, or is it, that's it?
I'm giggling because I've been pushing all along. We need to take more foam back with us when we return, because as a station crew member, that's a challenge to get all the packing material out of the space station and bring it home, because packing material takes up a lot of space and we use it very enthusiastically. We do have about a 70% full MPLM. It's very dynamic at that part of the mission. There'll be things, I'm sure, that are added on as the space station program takes a look at where we are and what we might be able to bring down, or what the station guys have time to get ready for us. So hopefully we can bring more than that, and we'll see. We'll certainly be ready to, and I'm sure we'll be asked to bring more than that as well. And as far as time goes, I think we'll be able to get it all done.
Jackie Goddard for the Sunday Telegraph again. I wanted to ask, who's the last person that will get off Atlantis after we'll stop? I'm assuming it's you, Commander. And if I'm correct, what will you do and what will you say to bid farewell to the shuttle and to the end of this era?
Well, traditionally the commander gets off last, and unless Chunky here does something to me, I plan on getting off last. We'll have some words, hopefully, that will acknowledge the significance of the event after the wheels stop. And near the very end, I don't know. I'll probably just try to find something. I'm not preparing anything, but I'm sure we'll have some really good words for the control team here in Houston. To thank them, because not only are we climbing out of the orbiter for the last time, but this room that we're standing in here, it may be one of the last times that it ever gets used, at least in the configuration that it's in right now. So, I'm not quite sure how everybody's going to feel. I think it'll be an emotionally challenging time. I think it'll be a celebration because you know, in effect we're mission accomplished. We've done everything we set to do in a span of 30 years. But at the same time, you know, you always hate to lose your first airplane. I can't remember the first airplane I ever flew. I hated to stop flying it because I really liked it, and the Space Shuttle is no different.
Any additional follow-ups?
Just say God bless you, and it's an honor and privilege to be here with you. Pat
Oh.
Patton, Good News.
Thanks so very much, Pat.
Okay, with that, that wraps up the media portion and the questions. And just a reminder, there are additional interview opportunities following this, including with the lead space station flight director, Chris Edelin, and also Kwatsi Alabarujo, who is the lead shuttle flight director for the mission. They'll be available for interviews following this. Thank you very much.
Houston, that's beautiful. This has got to be one of the most proud moments of my life, I guarantee you.